Yay. All right. All right. We are recording. We are live, ladies and gentlemen.
There it is.
All right. Can everybody see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
More or less.
Perfect. All right. So 6:33. Welcome, everybody. Hope you guys are all doing well. If Marcy, hopefully Marcy will join. I have not seen her, but if she does, then we'll do the minutes. If not, we'll skip the minutes. Chris is going to talk about shelter to housing plan. I want to briefly talk about the board documentation that we had discussed at the last meeting. I also want to talk about board vacancies, and then we will go into board reports and then adjourn at 7:30. Any changes?
Okay, there we go.
A motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Okay, there we are.
The meeting agenda, yes.
Meeting agenda, sorry.
So moved.
Oh, I need a piece of paper. I'm back, technical difficulties. Brad, you made the motion?
Yep.
Any second?
Second,
George?
George.
Anybody opposed to approving the minutes?
The agenda.
Agenda, gosh. I'm going back to my secretary days. All right. They are approved. Is Marcy on yet? Marcy. Nope. Okay, we're skipping the minutes. Chris, you are up. Do you need to share, right? Or you would like to share?
Please.
Okay. All right. Hold on, let me go into, okay, go for it.
Okay, can everyone see it?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
All right, so this is a quick rundown on the status of the shelter to housing continuum project at the city. This is, well, let's just keep going. Background. So everybody remembers back in 2015, the city declared a housing emergency. Since then, it's renewed it. But the city hasn't really been able to take advantage of that. And remember, the housing emergency allows the city to ignore certain zoning requirements for siting shelters or allowing housing. So given that it's not working very well, a couple of years ago, the city recommended, let's do this shelter to housing continuum project. And it's been in the works for 2 years. It's been largely done by staff. There were some hearings held at the end of 2020, and might have been one in November, but in December. Last week, the Planning and Sustainability Commission approved the project and recommended that council adopt it. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you all about what's in it in a minute. So now it's headed off to council, and there'll be a future opportunity for public comment on the proposal. So, purpose of shelter to housing continuum. Goals of this project are to further fair housing laws, expand the range of shelter and housing options, and improve how the regulatory environment affects for-profit, nonprofit, and public sector shelter and housing providers. No government official ever being able to write a sentence without multiple nested lists. What does that mean? The big part of it is shelters. And when we use the term shelter here, it's referring to a whole range of types of shelters. A shelter is everything from a city-sanctioned group of tents, basically a homeless camp with which we're all familiar as long as the city sanctioned it, all the way up to what we normally think of as traditional indoor shelters for people without homes. It also includes post-incarceration shelters. So people that have recently been released from prison and need a shelter to stay at. The shelter to housing continuum will expand where shelters are allowed in the city. It does this in a few ways. It's going to eliminate the conditional use for alternative and post-incarceration facilities. Normally, those are allowed in certain zones by a conditional use. For those who don't know, a conditional use permit is basically a use in an area that the city has said, we want to take a closer look at this before we allow it. And so the developer or person seeking the use has to apply to the city, and it's reviewed by the Bureau of Development Services or ultimately the council to say yes or no, this is a good use for this particular parcel. This as opposed to a by right use of a piece of land, which is basically you own a piece of residential property, you can put a house on it by right. You don't have to get a conditional use permit. You still have to follow rules. There's not that extra layer of review. The new proposed code also would exempt outdoor shelters from design review and pedestrian circulation standards. So basically, it means you don't have to meet the normal building codes. The way the structure or a group of tents looks wouldn't fall under traditional code review. Okay, big change. Parks and open spaces. We're going to allow shelters and parks and open spaces for up to 180 days, just flat out. So if there's a park in the city and the city wants to put a shelter in it, which again can be anything from a group of tents up through Hazelnut Grove type shanties to, I guess you could do a Kenton Women's Village, St. John's Village, and then all the way up to a built structure, which would probably not work in a park. But for up to 6 months, it could go in a park, done. After the initial 6 months, there would be conditional use. So the city could approve it for longer existence in those spaces. What's not clear to me in the code proposal is how that clock resets. So if there were a temporary outdoor shelter in Overlook Park, and after 180 days, the city shut it down for a couple weeks, does that reset the clock? Then no conditional use permit needed. We could do another 6 months. Code's a little vague on that. I might just not be seeing the right section, but that's something to keep an eye on. So in Overlook, eligible open spaces and parks are all of the sites along North Going Street, Pittman Hydro Park, Madrone and Overlook Parks, the sides of Interstate 5, the Dog Bowl, and pretty much any other piece of grass that's not privately owned in the neighborhood. Smaller shelters. So these are going to be anything up to a certain size. They're still kind of finagling what that's going to be, 20 to 40 to 50 people maybe. Will be allowed by right in commercial, multi-dwelling, and employment zones. Again, in Overlook, that's going to mean that any shelter could be put by right. That's as opposed to a conditional use, remember. On Killingsworth Interstate, parts of Greeley, north of Killingsworth, some of Swan Island, Hazelnut Grove site surprisingly has been zoned, and almost everything between Interstate and I-5. And so again, this is, someone could just do it without that heightened layer of review and without public comment. This is the zoning map of Overlook. It's hard to see the borders, and does my mouse show up on the share there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Ainsworth here at the top, and out here's Swan Island, and then all the way down here is Hazelnut Grove down at the corner of the neighborhood. And this green corridor is I-5. So on this map, shelters would be allowed either 180 days in any green area, those are all open spaces and parks, or by right, smaller shelters in kind of the pink area all up and down the interstate, any purple area, and the light blue areas. Oh, and this area too, whatever color that is, peach. Oh, and orange. Lots of areas. So basically, you're looking at, like I said, Killingsworth Interstate, going into the parks, lots of places the city could put shelters. It doesn't mean they will put shelters there, but this code change would allow them to. Other changes to shelter rules. For larger shelters, so bigger than smaller ones, those would be allowed in those same zones, but those would require a conditional use. In other words, the city gives it a closer look, and there would be an opportunity for public comment. Shelters are allowed anywhere by right with permission of the landowner for no more than 180 days. That means if somebody owns an empty parcel in a community, in any neighborhood, and they want to allow a shelter to form there for 180 days with the city's sanction, they could do it. Theoretically, you could do it in your backyard. So if somebody had a large backyard and they wanted to have a shelter in their yard for 180 days, they could do it. There would be no conditional use permit required. There would be no public comment required. And this is straight from the proposal. The city also retains flexibility to site temporary shelters anywhere without a conditional use for longer periods of time in response to disasters such as the COVID-19 emergency or in the aftermath of an earthquake. So as long as COVID-19 is going on, 180 days doesn't even apply. The city can just put a permit wherever it wants, anywhere in the city. All right, so how many sites are we talking in Overlook? I had to file a public records request to the city for this information, but once I did, they gave it to me in Overlook, and I have these numbers for all of the neighborhoods if anybody wants to see them. But in Overlook, we have 966 lots, basically, that total 1,184 total acres, of which 66 are undeveloped. Okay, outdoor shelters, and this is all under the proposed rules, would be allowed by right on 159 of those tax lots, totaling 48 acres, 5 of them vacant. They'd be allowed with a conditional use permit on 520 of those tax lots. Short-term shelters, again, allowed outright on 190 lots and with a conditional use permit on 490. And then mass shelters, and you can all see the numbers here. So there's a lot of lots in the neighborhood that potentially could get a shelter placed on them, either allowed outright, which means no public comment, or with a conditional use permit, which would involve public comment that the city could listen to or not. This is a handy map the city put together to kind of illustrate what this looks like for all the neighborhoods. The lighter the color, the more sites there are in the neighborhood. So as you might guess, East Portland, lots of places they could put homeless shelters. In the north, we're kind of middling, same with the inner east. And then we get into the darker colors kind of here in Irvington area, and then the west side, not many. There's a whole like 10-page report that has multiple maps that show allowed by right, allowed by conditional use permit, how many acres total, if anybody wants to see more maps. All right, beyond shelters, there's going to be some other changes. One is to group living requirements. Group living is lots of bedrooms around a single common living area or kitchen. So, I mean, think of it as a dormitory. And this is similar to, if ever anyone remembers, the project at Jessup in Montana, that we had written a letter challenging the project on the grounds that they wanted to classify it as regular apartments, but it was really group living because every unit didn't have its own kitchen. So our challenge was, look, we don't care if you do this, just get a conditional use permit so the neighborhood gets a chance to comment as part of the process. The developer chose not to do that and instead redesigned to make it all apartments instead of group living. Under the new rules, they wouldn't have had to have done that. Group living is going to be allowed in every residential zone. So even single family doesn't exist anymore. So any developable plot could get a group living arrangement built on it. There's no conditional use permit, no public comment, just anybody can do it. RVs and tiny homes on wheels. Tiny homes on wheels are what they sound like. Think small shed-like structure with a bed on that you can pull around. Anybody can have one in their driveway if they don't have an ADU on their lot. Basically, every residential lot right now is allowed one ADU, additional dwelling unit. If you don't have one, you can instead park an RV in your driveway, and let somebody live in it forever. Same with tiny home on wheel. You could park that in the driveway. There's some requirements that it's got to be hooked up to the sewer. It's got to have power. But the rules that kind of regulate RVs parked in residential zones are pretty much out the window now. There's no more telling people you can't have a big RV parked right out in front of your house.
Yeah, but wait. Can
It doesn't apply to the street. It's got to be on the driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Also, parking lots, for example, at churches or other outdoor shelters could be allowed to have an RV park in them. They can't allow multiple RVs on a given lot because of state laws that say if you have 2 or more RVs, you're now an RV park and you fall under a whole new set of requirements. So it would be restricted to 1 anywhere.
For churches, do they have to be in like a parking lot or just on the street?
No, in a parking lot.
Does this mean that RVs on the street are no longer allowed?
No, RVs in theory are still under the old regulation that I think you're allowed to park an RV in the street for 72 hours or maybe a week.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, there's a finite amount of time and then you're supposed to move it.
More like 6 hours, but
Okay, 6 hours.
Maybe.
But we all know how well that's enforced.
Mhm.
All right, and finally, the city's shortage of shelter and affordable housing would be declared a continuing emergency caused by a natural disaster. What does that mean? Well, it means that the housing emergency that council declared 2 years ago and renewed a couple times is no longer temporary. It's just a permanent, ongoing emergency in the city, which frees up the city to do a lot of things, including ignoring a lot of the zoning codes. Not that they would need to, given all of the other changes that are being proposed in here, they're going to be able to put shelters where they want and build housing where they want. And this is also interesting in that, remember, let me go back a couple slides here. This quote here at the bottom, that in response to a disaster, the city can do a lot more with temporary shelters and ignore conditional use permits. Well, if the housing emergency is caused by a natural disaster, that means we're going to have an ongoing state of the city that can pretty much ignore all of the rules to where it wants to put shelters. And there you go. That's what's in the shelter to housing continuum proposal. I have some thoughts on it. I make no formal judgment. I think there's some good things in there. I think there's some bad things in there. But I figured you all should know what's going on in case the neighborhood association wants to weigh in before the council adopts it.
What's the natural disaster? COVID is the natural disaster that they're using?
Well, that's what they've used
Can't
for
hear
their. They use COVID for the formal statement that it's as long as COVID's going on, they can ignore it. But they're also going to codify that the housing emergency is an ongoing emergency caused by an unspecified natural disaster.
Like human existence, probably, or something.
Yeah.
All right. Which it is, you know.
It is. Humans are natural.
It's our own fault, but hey. Okay.
So this hasn't been adopted yet, but it will when?
Well, like I said, the Planning and Sustainability Commission just last week forwarded it to council, so I would expect it to appear on a council agenda in the next month or so. They'll have to hold a public hearing. They'll give everybody a heads up, I think, because they're going to want a chance to hear comments. It'll take them a few months to process all this.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what public comment did they use to form this?
None.
If you go look at the documents for the project, they sort of outline the comments they received. So staff wrote a draft of this and then brought it to the Planning and Sustainability Commission, and then they took public comment. And throughout kind of the staff drafting of it, there was some informal public engagement, but then during public comment, there was a range of stuff. There were people that said, no, this goes too far. And there were people that said, this doesn't go far enough. We should allow multiple RVs and we should allow group homes to be much more densely packed, for example. There's some limits on how dense they can be. I think staff kind of dismissed anything that said this goes too far. And basically adopted some things that people wanted for it to go farther, but to a lot of it said, no, we're not willing to go that far right now. Yeah, but yeah, comments were mixed. Part of the challenge is this thing's really been flying under the radar. I mean, it's gotten this far along without a whole lot of public attention.
Yeah, that's what it seems. Yeah.
Other questions?
What do you think about not sharing your slideshow would be an interesting thought, but at least putting out that this is the time to get educated on this so that folks can make their comments when it comes to city council. Because it's been very quiet, in my opinion.
We included it in, I think when they were taking online comments, we included it in a neighborhood update or two.
Yeah.
But we could certainly put it out again. This is being recorded and it'll be on our YouTube channel if anybody wants to watch my presentation and listen to me ramble for 10 minutes or however long I went.
But it would be, I mean, it would be interesting to send them out because, of course, they don't, I mean, it was a good summary. I mean, it was a great summary, which I don't think you often see.
Yeah, I think too bad we can't put it in the newsletter because I think it is a good summary and for people to watch out for the opportunity to give comments, whatever their comments are.
Well,
it's too
Cassie,
late.
you're on the video, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
So maybe we could put a mention of this in the neighborhood update this weekend or next weekend, and just a link to the video and tell people that they should learn more about this because.
Yeah, we can definitely put it in the neighborhood update.
Okay.
And you could put the time point at which it starts in the recording. I realized it was pretty early, but you say, start 2 minutes in or whatever you want to do. Some people may find that nice.
Yep.
And I'll write a short summary for you, Cassie, that you can include with it.
Okay, that's great.
Yes, Chris, thank you. Really appreciate this.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, that was great. Appreciate it. Yeah, we should get that out because I think it just summarizes everything nicely. And people, sometimes it's hard to discern what's going on when you get a document that's 50 pages long. So we'll figure out a way if you don't mind sharing.
You hear me? Hello, this is Marcy.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Sorry I'm late first off, but did they address how they're going to deal with sanitation if they have like 15 RVs in a parking lot?
Well, they can't have 15 RVs. They can only have one RV.
Okay, well, you talked about, you were talking about RVs in larger parking lots.
Yeah, they're still
Did I
limited
miss
to
it?
one. Otherwise, it becomes an RV park.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought it meant multiple.
But they could have tents in up to how many tents?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a limit.
Yeah. So do they address sanitation in those?
How have they addressed sanitation with any of that?
I don't know. I confess I haven't read the full code itself. It runs to more than 100 pages. And I haven't read all of it.
Why not? That sounds
You're
like
so
a
good at
charming,
those things, Chris.
I think we all know the answer to that.
yeah, that's a charming evening read.
Yeah, if you need to go to bed. All right. Any other questions? Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
You'll send those slides to me.
What do you want to do with them?
I think we should send them out to people. Put them on somewhere.
I'd rather direct people to watch the video. I don't know that I want to share the slides because I kind of whipped them together and they're not very good.
They are good.
All right, I'll send you the PowerPoint. You do with it what you want.
I'll do both.
Okay.
Your name's not on it,
Your name's not on it.
and we barely knew you, so you know.
Yeah. I won't say it's you.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Board documentation. Let's talk a little bit about that. So at the last meeting, yes, I do. At the last meeting, we talked about creating documentation so that if people changed jobs or for new people, we could have like a guidance document for people to use. And I'm trying to share here, but now again, I can't remember how to do it. Here we go. Okay. So this is one that, this is one for the executive board. What I did was I went through and I did it for like the chairperson. So basically, you know, preparing and posting the agenda, presiding over all board and regular meetings, blah, 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 on and on and on and on and on. And then who the contacts are, which websites we use, the vice chairperson, etc. So I sent out, I think I sent it out when, yesterday? Day before? Day before I sent out the documents again to everybody. And my question to you guys is, are you still interested in preparing that documentation? And if so, timing on completing it. I know, Brad, you said I can't do it by Tuesday, but I was not forcing you to do it by Tuesday.
Okay. No, I do plan on doing it in February and having it ready for the March 2nd board meeting.
Perfect. Okay. And then I saw, Michael, you had sent out a version for land use. I have not had a chance to read it, but I will look at that.
Fine. It was just a draft, and Brian and I were kind of talking about things. So we thought it'd be good just to share. And I broke it into a couple pieces because I wasn't sure how or if we should deal with volunteer members like Brian and I, but kind of put that out there for conversation.
Okay, thanks. I will look at it. I will look through that. To the other board members, when I sent out the email, I had a list of the different committees. Is everybody okay if we discuss that at the next meeting, the next board meeting? And when did you say it was, Brad?
March 2nd.
If we discuss that on March 2nd, is everybody okay with at least giving a, you know, a brief? It doesn't have to be, maybe it doesn't have to be complete, but filling it in some information for each of the committees by that time. So a month from now, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So should we be sending it to you so you can create one document that has all of them, or?
Yeah, I have a document that I've started that has all of the chair, the vice chair, and then lists all the committees. So I'm going to try to create just one document that has it all.
Okay, so we should really send them to you before the March board meeting, right?
You can send it to me before, ideally. Yeah, that'd be great. And then Alan, I did not do the newsletter, but I don't know if you can create one for the newsletter.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
Okay. That would be great. Okay, so does anybody say they don't want to do it?
I can do it. I just need a little bit more time. I got
Okay.
behind on things.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
And me also. I need to actually touch base with Marcy there
Mhm.
to get on the same page. It's not terribly involved, as it
No.
were, when I think about it, because it's still in a state of flux, which would be coming up here shortly. So, well,
Yeah.
we'll muddle together something, I guess. Getting it to you might be problematic. Again, no computer on this end.
No, Marcy can do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
George and I can work it out and I'll send it in.
Okay,
rightio.
perfect. Great. All right, so then a month from today, no, like maybe 3 weeks, whatever that is, if anybody has a calendar up.
3 weeks from today? Is that what,
Yeah,
that's what you said? 3 weeks from
Yeah.
today would be the 23rd.
okay. 23rd. February 23rd. If you could have those documents to me, that would be fabulous. Great. All right, thank you. All right, that was quick. So board vacancies, let's talk about that. So John Parks, and I don't know if he sent his resignation to everybody or if he just sent it to me. I think he might have just sent it to me. Okay, yeah, so he resigned a couple weeks ago.
So I'll take him off as absent today because he's no longer on the board.
Yeah, take him off his absence. So yeah, unfortunately he resigned. It was just a very short resignation, didn't really say much, so.
Did he
But
give any kind of reason?
no, I think he said personal. It was like 2 sentences, you know, I have to resign, you know, due to personal commitments or personal. So, yeah, so unfortunately, he's gone. So at that point, at this point now, it means I think we have, out of 12, I think we have 9 board members and 3 at vacant. Well, is that right?
No?
10? Oh, I can't count.
Where's your list that you had?
I know, where's my list? I should have figured this out before.
Cue that up.
Yeah, we're at
Oh.
10.
We're at 10?
We're at
Okay.
10.
All right, so we have 10 board members. I know that Chris is leaving imminently, so we're gonna have 9. So we will have 3 vacancies coming up. So the question to everybody is, do we want to try to fill them or maintain the board with 9 members? And if the answer is yes, we do want to fill them, who would we, you know, do we have any, is there anybody who we would think would be a board member that would be interested? And I have reached out to Brian and Michael and Grant and they've been avoiding me. So. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, what positions? John did schools and Chris was
Communications, which
communication Cassie took.
Don't past tense me yet.
Sorry.
Yeah,
He's still here.
He's still here.
And then we had a vacancy with nothing. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. I mean, schools, they're not open now. We don't have to fill that committee position. I don't think. So it could be anybody who's interested. But the question is, do we think we need to? I mean, I know there's nothing really there's not a ton going on. So maybe we just, you know, leave it, see if anything comes up and then reach out to people. But I just wanted your opinions.
Are there any past board members that might be interested, like Michelle or oh, I'm drawing a blank and I just saw him today. Matt Scogan or Michelle, or I'm trying to think of people who were on the board before that might be interested.
I don't know. Well, it sounds like if we don't really feel like we can think of anybody or that it's urgent, then maybe we just leave it open. There are just 3 minutes. 2.
So if we have somebody join, do they have to go through the voting process, or can we put that out on, like, you know, in the newsletter? Hey, we have vacancies on the board. Are you interested?
They have to go through a board vote.
Okay. But it doesn't have to be a neighborhood vote.
Doesn't have to be a neighborhood vote.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I do like the idea of putting out in the, you know, the weekly email, about it, especially the school liaison. So even though they're not physically in session, you know, Beach is still running. I don't know about what's going on with, I want to say Trillium, but the charter school.
Ivy.
Yes, thank you, Ivy School. And, you know, I don't know exactly the work that John did, but I think the more that we could have somebody to begin to reestablish relationships with Beach, the better. And there are tons, obviously, of parents and PTA members in the Overlook neighborhood who will have the energy to do that kind of thing. So
Yep, that's a good
I
point.
wouldn't mind recruiting somebody
Especially for that position. I
for
can,
that position. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and for, I know Cassie has a similar need, help, so maybe that would be another position, right?
Yeah, I did put that one in the newsletter
Oh, you did put that one.
last week. Yep. Or the weekly update.
Oh, perfect.
Looking for someone to help with like proofreading and potentially writing of the weekly updates. So I did put that one in there. But we can definitely put this one in there too, because I think that's pretty pertinent. And it's, I feel like when you have a specific need, it's easier to find someone.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and especially school, there
Yeah.
are just so many parents who, now, of course, the parents are pretty overwhelmed right now, so maybe they don't have the energy, but, or another grandparent.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put that in this week.
Let's figure out how to write it. We can say something like, board, we have vacancies, 2 vacancies. We are looking, we'll have to figure out how to write it, but we're looking for somebody who is interested in being a school's chair, liaison chair, and then we're still looking for the communications help. Go ahead, Chris.
And
I know Chris wants to talk.
go for
Yeah,
it.
just one thing to think about as you fill vacancies, as I look at the board roster here in the, what'll be 3 vacancies soon. 2 of the vacancies are for seats that expire this year. And John's was through 2022. So if you don't fill all 3, I would recommend filling the 2021 ones so that residents get to vote on that person this fall instead of
September.
the board saying we're going to appoint somebody for almost a year and a half. Instead, you're only appointing them for 6 months, and then if that person wants to run again, great. If not, it's up to them. But it involves the neighborhood residents more that way.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, so in the update, yeah, we'd say the position is for 7 months or whatever. However many months. 2 of them are. Those 2.
Do we?
Chris, yours was 1, right? Chris's was 1. So John was 2, and the empty one was 1.
Yeah, the empty one is 2021, mine is 2021, and John's is 2022.
Okay. Thank you. I agree with Chris's approach. Year and a half is a long time for an appointment or appointed position.
I mean, we could always do, I mean, it doesn't matter. If we get 3 people, we can always just do it we can always put it up for a vote. We don't have to, right? We can say this position is for 2 years, or this position is for 1 year, the other 2 are for 2 years.
If we don't fill the position, does that position just get filled in September and is voted on by the neighbors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that sounds like a plan. So we'll put it out in the update for those 2 positions and see what we get.
Okay.
Great. Okay, board reports. What do you guys have? I'm gonna go down the line. Brad, you're right below me. This is like the Brady Bunch. You're right below me, so.
It gets this way at work too, where they call him B Brad first, every time. Nothing on the treasure side and transportation. I think you've seen the stuff coming out about the I-5 bridge. And I think that's it at the moment. And the Flanders crossing looks really seamless. If you go down 405, you almost can't tell it's there. So, which is, I think, nice. It blends in.
That's cool. I have not seen it. What was I going to say? At the North Portland Chairs meeting last night, it was a very weird meeting, but in the 30 seconds that we had to present, Tom Hickey mentioned that he is on the CRC, the new ERC, CRC revised.
Oh, yeah.
Goody.
He will share with us anything that is going on with the new Columbia River crossing for input. So.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thanks, George. You are next in line. I'm going around in a circle.
I am.
In a square.
Okay,
Going
well.
around in a square.
Is this like musical chairs? Anyway, not a whole lot to report. The Northeast Public Safety Action Committee did meet on the 21st via Zoom. And in attendance on that was Commander Brian Ossenkopf and let's see, Lieutenant Ken Dulio. And he used to be in the gun violence task force, which got disbanded. And so he's now, I think, one of the shift sub-commanders there at North Precinct. And also there was Sergeant Butcher. And she is in charge of the kind of reforming neighborhood response team. And at one point, I believe they had the sergeant and 6 or 7 people doing stuff. And they're still coming up to speed now with her and 2 officers. But those officers are going to be eminently reassignable, contingent on riots and et cetera, as it has been for quite some time now. And so one of the main points that he brought up was that Commander Ossenkopf brought up. North Precinct has 84 sworn officers to cover 54 square miles. And so we're hurting. And a lot of people that have been observing long response times or lack of response and whatnot, that's got to be one of the major motivating factors. And also the fact that, you know, to date, we have over 100 shootings and we're heading for a new record, and we've got more homicides than we've ever had before. And those are going to be definitely taking a higher priority than car prowls, car thefts, even minor assaults and whatnot. It's just, that's the nature of the beast when they're doing the triaging. So there it is. The next meeting for the Psac is going to be February 18th. That's a Thursday, from 7 to about 8 p.m. It ran a little longer than that this last time. And I'm hoping to make it, but I've got a little bit of a Zoom conflict. My wife would be using this very device on Thursdays. And the last time I was using a portable hotspot I got the loan of and an iPad, and I don't have that hotspot. And whether her phone can do 2 Zooms at the same time, we're not sure.
No.
So if anybody else would like to tune into that one, it's going to be up and running. And it's still in a formative stage as far as getting information out. And Commander Ossenkopf addressed that a bit because as far as attendance by, and also to any neighborhood associations, by the NRT, Neighborhood Response Team, is going to be virtually undoable for the foreseeable future. It might be a year or 2 down the line before they can even entertain the thought of trying to add that back in. And it's not looking promising. Yeah, the whole staffing thing for the police bureau is looking very dire at this point in time. They've got plenty of openings. They are trying to do recruiting, but they've got more people who are interested in leaving than interested in becoming Portland police officers. So it's very disconcerting. Anyway, I think that's about it as far as the Psac goes and public safety goes. And while I've got the thing here, there was in the itinerary or potential itinerary that was talking about a land use thing. And do we have anybody that's doing land use here?
Yes, we do. They will. We have two of them. They will give an update later.
Okay, because this thing I'm looking at about this historic inventory lists Julie Metz as the land use person. And this
She
thing
was
was
our
sent.
last one.
Okay, because this one was dated January 26th that it was sent out. And she's listed as the neighborhood person for Overlook. Anyway,
Yeah.
So
I know. Well,
when it gets to that,
hard to change. I mean, I still
Yeah.
get things from Kent, so.
well, there we go. Kent, get him back in here.
No, no. I
He's
don't
a-
know about that.
Oh, well, yeah, he kind of dropped out, I think.
I think Cynthia has
you
a
never
question
know.
for you, George.
Yeah, George,
Yes.
do you happen to know how many police officers there had been in North Precinct? Now you said there are 84, I think.
84.
What's the average historically?
I don't have stats. He didn't have stats up. That's just what he put out was that currently they had 84 sworn officers, and that would include himself, I dare say.
But
that-
one
but I
doesn't,
don't know what
think- it seems, when you talk about square miles, it seems small, but we don't have a context of,
Right.
what did it used to be like? So
Yeah.
how significant was the decrease? 10%, 40%?
Just going right off the top of my head, I'd say it's in the neighborhood of about 40%.
Hmm.
That at one point, I think we had over 150 officers involved with North Precinct. And as far as the 54 square miles, that is not small at all. Goes Linton to Troutdale.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of territory to cover with that many officers. And that's, I believe, all three shifts. So he went into a little bit about the staffing issues, that if they have an officer or two call in sick or whatever, that it really puts a hurt on things. And so yeah, as far as the statistics about how many officers were assigned to North at any given time, I think their bailiwick has been about the same for, I would say, at least the 5 or 6 years since they shut down, maybe even 7. The old North Precinct, when it was up in St. John's, and consolidated over here with Northeast and just named it North. So from that point, it's been Linton to Troutdale, basically. And I forget what the southern boundary is relatively. But it's a lot of territory. But it's significantly less. I mean, when the NERC team used to have 6 or 7 officers, and we did get that officer to attend occasionally. So they had staff available. The other thing, of course, and probably people have noticed it in the news, the traffic division is gone. So response to accidents, they still have a team apparently that goes out to the major crash scenes, especially if it's a fatal or whatnot. But it's not working out of the old North Precinct, from what I gather. That the motorcycles and the staff have been redistributed to the precincts to put them a little closer. But as far as enforcement goes, for speed and whatnot, it's going to be severely limited because those officers were reassigned to cover the riots and whatnot. So, yeah, and it's in a pretty big state of flux.
Quick question is,
Sure.
how many people were at Psac? Ish.
Attending? tuned in. There were 27.
Okay, thank you.
So, and that included people from all of the North Precinct area. And so, and I forget how many neighborhood associations that exactly covers. It's something in a neighborhood of 30 or 35.
Mhm.
And so the number of attendees was fairly small. And that of course included the officers and a couple of other people, one from traffic enforcement, parking enforcement, who basically said, the bad news about cars that are being lived in and whatnot, as far as trying to get them towed, that basically if it looks like somebody's living in it, they're not going to mess with it because of the emergency situations. And so, yeah, it's we're all going to be tightening up our belt. Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Well, thanks for tracking all of that.
Sure. Next.
All right, Alan.
Deliver my newsletter either this week or next week. I don't know when.
Oh, we don't know when. Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna give the update on
Oh,
the
perfect.
newsletter.
All right, Cassie.
I've sent off all of the files. So the next step would be that we would hopefully get a draft to the board for review. The schedule that I had talked to her about was on the 9th. I would have that draft to send out to the board, and then we would have time to edit it. And then we would send the edits back to her on the 12th of February. And then print and delivery would be on the 15th of February.
Good, that's within my time schedule. That's good.
Okay. Wow, that's a quick. Okay, so quick turnaround. So everybody, Feb 9th to Feb 12th. So for edits.
So is this, I'm sorry, I missed the timing on this. Usually we review and talk about the draft newsletter at the board meeting. So were we supposed to do that this time and there were delays with?
I don't have the full draft yet. So let's see. The next board meeting would be the 16th. So that would be after this too.
We haven't done that for a while, Cynthia. It's been a couple years since we've done that. We've been doing it digitally.
Yeah, no, I meant, but we have been having the draft digitally for board members to okay on the board meeting. And then typically the turnaround then goes to Alan and so on, and it's ready the Friday after the board meeting. So I'm just curious how we got off that regimen about 2 weeks off.
Again, we haven't done that for a while. And we used to do that when we were kind of in sync for that. And as we've gone more digital, we've circulated it to all the board members. And when I was doing it, all of the board members would review it, send their comments to me, and I would put it all into one document and hand it off to Chelsea.
Yeah, we haven't been in sync with the board meeting in a little while.
Okay, so Cassie, you're going to send us the draft for us to look at and okay. So this is going to be March through May newsletter?
Mid-February. It's going to be printed in February, mid-February.
February, March. Yeah.
So this is the February newsletter. So it's going out late though.
Yeah.
From our historic, we try to really get it out the beginning of the month. I'm just asking what happened to the logic of the timing, and if this is the way it is, okay. But I thought we try to get it out at the beginning of the month. So
This is still okay. I can make it, but yeah.
I think we're still within the range, and we do have, I think we got off with COVID.
okay.
So next week, Tuesday, the 9th, we should have something to review, and we've got 3 days to get it back. That sound right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
All right, Cynthia.
Actually, I don't have anything definitive to report on parks.
Okay. Brad. I already did you. I forgot. I'm just, like, everybody moves positions, so I'm having a hard time.
You said Use the chat roster,
Michael,
the
Brian
participant.
and Michael.
Yeah, I guess-
Go ahead, Michael.
yeah. The only thing I think there were two items that came in through email from the city. One was a follow-up on the 8-story building, and the other is a house that would like to change their historic status or remove their historic status, potentially so that they could, do something with it that isn't constrained by the historic status. And as Brian and I are getting these things in, one thought came to mind that how is one way we were thinking about how to present it to the neighborhood. So if a neighbor was concerned about it, they would have a way to reach to the city. Sometimes it takes people a lot of research to find out who to talk to. So we thought maybe it would be helpful in a newsletter or somewhere to just list it. And then if a person was interested in looking through the newsletter and see their neighbor has decided to change the status on their house, if they had an issue, they could reach out. But on the change of historic status, it doesn't seem like it's something the board would get involved in. On the other higher story or the 8-story building, the place that the city planning is at, a current place where they said if the board wanted to make a recommendation, essentially it says that the board could take a position on it if we wanted to, and maybe interrupt or just voice our thoughts or the neighborhood's thoughts on the 8-story building. And the only thing about that is I thought there had been some concerns, and I thought those concerns should find their way back to the city, so the city knows that the neighborhood is actually paying attention, whether or not we can do anything about it, just because most of the items are approved by planning, but at least those things are in the record.
That was the building that we talked about at the last meeting, the one that's right on the freeway?
Yes.
Yeah.
That
was the one where people were talking about parking, et cetera.
Yes, parking, issues with cars, issues with loading, issues with garbage trucks, issues with traffic, issues with shadow and shade or blocking the sunlight. Those were the issues that came up.
And there was nothing illegal that they were doing, right?
Yeah, based on the loopholes that they're allowed by low-cost housing, affordable housing, they're able to do this. And I think that, obviously affordable housing is something that we need in the city, but there's a question about the neighborhood and immediate neighbors and the cost of that. And yeah.
Might be good. I mean, we can talk about putting it into the weekend or the weekly update, putting something in there, on a monthly basis about land use or sustainability or safety.
So this 8-story unit, what are the cross streets on that one?
Jessup and Minnesota. Jessup and Minnesota.
Yes.
I'll give you the exact address. It's 1208 North Jessup Street.
I just walked by it today.
Is the comment, so are they in a comment period right now?
Yes. Written comments due by February 17th.
Okay, so that's got to go out this week pretty much for
In the
to give
update.
people a chance.
Yeah, maybe if you guys could write something up for the update to put in, if people are interested in commenting, if you have a link to a website or how people would comment, that would be great.
You can email that to me.
Okay, just like a couple sentences and a link.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and if for instance, if there was a slide deck that they sent us or something like that, you could include it, but I realize
the notice has a few plans. So
yeah. The other thing, I'm just brainstorming here a little bit, but with the meetings being recorded, if they presented at the November meeting, let's say, then you could actually say, if you want to see the presentation of what they did tell us 2 months ago, here it is. So
okay.
That would be good because they did.
Yeah, they do have, we should have that.
They did present, and a lot of the material that is shown in the link has floor plans and elevations, and they did present that at the meeting, I believe.
So it's on our website. I think Cassie can hopefully help find, if not, Chris can.
Okay. Yeah, I still would want the link that you have because we can link out to multiple sources, but yeah, send over what you've got.
Perfect.
Cool. Thanks, you guys.
Oh,
All right, Grant, do you have anything? I know we're kind of a little bit late, unless you have something amazing, George.
no, I was just saying, as far as the house about the historic registry, did either Brian or Michael contact those folks
I'm not going to contact them.
at Bureau of Development Services? Oh, I did. Seeing how that's within a block of me. So basically, they sent out 180 notices.
Okay.
But it's a radius of 150 feet. And I thought, gee, that's quite a few for 150 feet, but it also includes neighborhood associations. So you guys got a copy of it.
Yes.
And basically, although the thing is, because it says removed from the historic inventory, it's not bullet points, but it says end of demolition delay. And then down at the bottom, in the proposal area, it says demolition of the structure is not proposed at this time. So it's like, so what was that? So that's why I called to say, what is that? And apparently there's nothing we can do about it. It's going to get rubber stamped after the 180 days, which puts it up to May 22nd. And as far as demolishing it, they don't have to put that up to any kind of public input either. If the lady that owns that house wants to demolish it, she can do it.
Well,
Period. That's it. Yeah,
not,
I was a bit stymied by
I'm not
that
sure that's-
myself.
well,
That's
this
the nuts
is,
and
the
bolts of it.
notice, the notice that you got is just removing the status, the historical status of it.
Right.
If they choose to demolish it, probably we'll get another notice of a demolition in the neighborhood.
We might,
Well,
we might not, because once you remove the status, the ownership has different rights. The historic status limits certain things you can do. Happens to a lot of buildings downtown where there's a new owner, there's a 6-month period, they change the historic status, it's no longer historic, they demolish it and put a new building up, and that's a cycle.
Yeah. Well, according to Ben in planning and zoning, he said that this is more of just a boilerplate thing they need to send out. There is no actual decision. This is just part of the process to let people within a certain radius and the neighborhood association and a few other folks know, but there is no discretion or anything. It's just basically going to happen unless you know there's a red house type incident or who knows what all,
So it's,
which I don't think is going to happen.
so it's kind of like an accessory dwelling unit notification. It's just letting you know that it's going on.
Yeah, it's going on. There's nothing you can do about it.
All right.
It's just what it is. So yeah,
Well,
that's why I wanted to throw in.
Okay.
All right, thanks. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
keep us posted on that, George. I want to just finish
Sure.
that since we're 36 minutes over. Grant and
Yeah,
Lee,
I'll be quick.
Chris?
Yeah, not too much from me. I've just been in touch with Greg from Portland Clean Air, and he just sent me an email today with the finalized letter. I think he was just getting a couple more signatures.
Okay.
And then just suggested putting a cover letter with a point of contact. And he wanted to, which it could be me, I'm assuming, just have that contact get in touch with similar representatives from a couple other neighborhood associations who've sent similar letters to industrial polluters. So yeah, I will share that with you, Alexandra.
Okay. Yeah, I can sign it. And then, yeah, if you could be the contact, that'd be great.
That's concerning the diesel exhaust.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, Lee.
I have no grievances.
What about Adidas? I do have an email I need to send you from somebody asking about Adidas. So.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I did talk to Tom. he said that the road construction is complete and should be clearing, or if not already cleared completely out. He had a couple of emails one evening about noise when they were moving furniture in at night, and so he put a stop to that. But he doesn't foresee any more heavy construction or road construction in those areas anymore. The only part that may be a little concerning is they are tasked with building the cycle track, Greeley and Going, because it just goes right through them. And that's at a total standstill because of the homeless camps that have popped up around the area, and they can't be responsible for removing
People.
the barriers to continue to work on the cycle track. So that has been stalled until Portland PBOT decides to do something about it. So it's
Have
just,
they contacted the city at all?
oh yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Lee, are they talking about the camps down in Madrona Hill or the ones on Going?
Going in Greeley.
Okay, because the camps on Going just got swept this week.
Mm.
Completely swept. All going from Interstate down to Greeley is cleaned.
The cycle tracks along Madrona Park there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's on
So-
Greeley.
Is it the camps on the Swan Island side
It
Yeah.
must be those.
that are the issue?
I'm assuming, yeah. Because it
Yeah, that's still
crosses,
there.
yeah, it has to be on that side because it crosses over to the other side.
Well, I don't know if he's
After.
talking about the like sidewalk track or I don't know for sure because
Okay.
At some point, wherever this track is supposed to go down Greeley, there's homeless people who are camped in the way, and PBOT has to. He said not only just getting them out, but like PBOT has to go through and do a thorough cleaning because of biohazard and waste that the construction people just won't do.
Jeez.
That's why they have hip waders.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
So the
Yeah.
second is at least on pause for right now.
They just cleaned up Going Street this week, and it took them 3 days and 6 large box vans to clear everything up along Greeley. And the only reason they did it was because of the shooting 3 weeks ago down there. So, it's going to take a shooting for them to clean out Madrona Camp, and it really took a long time. It took a long time and a lot of people to clean that up, and there's still cars down there.
Crazy. All right, well, thanks for the update. Let us know how that goes.
Yep.
he did write it. They did make the newsletter, so there'll be a full report in the newsletter.
Yeah, people will be up in arms about that. I'm sure.
Bicyclists.
Bicyclists, exactly. Marcy, update, and then I want to go through I know you weren't here at the beginning, but and we're over time, but the meeting minutes. Have you sent meeting minutes out to the board
Yes.
that we can approve?
Well, I got a couple things back, one from Cynthia about hers, and then Brad's were all my terrible spelling errors.
Okay, and those were
So-
like that was October and December?
The ones that I just sent out yesterday or the day before. The October and December should be good. Those were all spelling errors.
Okay,
And then the January ones were the ones that I was more concerned with, and Brad sent me some stuff on that. If anybody else had anything to add, otherwise, I think they're good to go.
well, let's do
Did I
the,
send
let's
them
do
out
the
again?
October. Let's do the October and
October.
December. Yeah.
Okay. I'll get
Um,
the October and December to Cassie, or
well, let's
just want
approve
to
them.
okay. Sorry.
Let's approve them. So is there a motion to approve the October and December meeting minutes?
I moved
I've
to
got the
approve
meeting
them.
minutes right this time. Okay,
Yeah.
Marcy moves. Second,
Second.
Brad. All right, any objections? Great, all right, I will Yeah, I'll go through the other ones, the January ones, and then we can resend them out to the board to make sure.
Okay, well, why don't I go ahead and get the corrections that Brad and Cynthia sent me, and then I'll resend them to you.
Perfect.
How's that?
I did, sorry, I was on mute and I didn't realize. I had it open and I wasn't looking at the screen, so I didn't know I was on mute. But I was trying to say Lee's name is spelled wrong on that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's a big deal.
What? It wasn't the first name, it was the last name, right?
Yeah, it's Kebler.
Okay.
And it's on there as KU, so it's just a misspelling.
I will fix that.
All right, sounds great. All right, Chris. Well, Chris, let me do one thing before you do, Chris, because let me talk about the general meeting. General meeting is in 2 weeks. Does anybody have anything for that general meeting? Otherwise, I would suggest that we cancel it.
At what point is Adidas going to want to come back and say hi, I guess?
Whenever we invite them. He said that he'd be happy to be a part of whatever it is that we want him to be a part of.
And other than the cycle track construction, will things be quiet here for a while?
That's what he says, yeah. Well, he even said, and this didn't make it into the article, even if they start bringing people into the office, it'll come in waves, like small trickling people in. He particularly is part of their legal team, and he doesn't believe that he'll be back in that office until 2022. So that place is going to be tumbleweeds for a little while.
Are they still enforcing the parking around there?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Well, I don't think that's not on Adidas. That's Peabot that's enforcing that.
Well, that's Peabot, but
it's
Adidas was paying for it until March. So that everybody, the parking permits around there, Adidas paid for it till March. And after that, the people will need to pay for their own parking permits if they want to keep those signs up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
It didn't come up, but I can bring that up next time.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't. If people want to keep the parking things up, because it was all about the construction and people parking there.
Yeah.
Well, Brad,
So-
do you have an update on that?
I don't. No, I don't. Thank you for bringing that up, Marcy. I do think we need to be on top of this because just so at least we know what's going on. Adidas. So, Lee, if you can check with Adidas and find out their status, that would be great. And then once we've got that, then I can check with the city as far as next steps.
Okay.
Because it could just go fallow for a while and they put bags on the signs and leave them in place and wait until the buildings fill up, and then it'll probably be an issue, is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know there's going to be a lot more parking, but as someone who used to work at Adidas, I know that a lot of people prefer to park in the neighborhood for ease of exit, not for lack of parking necessarily.
Yep, for sure.
Because it took so long to get out of the parking lot.
Yeah, that was a complaint by all the people living around there, is just somebody parked in front of my house.
Yeah. All right, so
they would park in the ample parking that Adidas had built for them, but who knows?
Yeah.
Well, so I guess the whole thing was whether or not people that live that close want to start paying for the permits to stop Adidas from parking, because that's what it is. They haven't paid for the permits. And so Adidas said they would stop paying in March because that's when their construction was done.
Right.
So if the people that live around Adidas are going to have to make that decision.
Is that something that we need to bring up as a neighborhood association to the neighbors?
That we should remind them they're going to have to pay for their parking permits?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
The system that's in place right now was created
Year and a half? Almost 2 years ago.
It didn't follow the official procedure for creating a parking zone that the city has.
Mm-hmm.
It was created as an ad hoc thing to last a year to get Adidas through the construction. If they wanted to make it permanent, we'd probably have to go back to the starting blocks and go through the formal city application process, which would involve collecting, I don't know if you have to collect signatures, but you have to get buy-in from like more than half of the people in the impacted zone. So
really, it's just going to end.
yeah, it's just going to end. And then if we want to go back and do it,
It'll be a process.
it'll be a process.
Okay.
And I think, the goal was to do it, let it expire, and see if the additional parking on the Adidas campus and better access on Greeley solved all the problems.
Right. That makes sense.
So should we not say anything about it sunsetting in March? And if people have problems, then they come to us?
Yeah.
Because I guess there's two things here, is if they're still going to enforce it and their permits aren't, and their permits expired.
Well, let's figure out what is going to happen. So
Okay.
Lee's going to get
collect the
information from Adidas, and then maybe Brad, if you could look at the city, then we can decide if we have it at a general meeting, if we have it as in like the weekly update, or if we have it, it might be good at a March general meeting and say, hey, you know what?
I do wonder, like, is the city going to collect the signs? If so, what day are they planning on taking those signs down?
So I can get that, but I want to hear that Adidas is stopping funding first, and that they're following through on their part of the plan. Because if for some reason,
I can't imagine that he would want to extend funding during a pandemic.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just want to hear that first, and then I can go to the city and say, hey, Adidas is stopping this. So remind me what that means, and let's have that official discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. All right. So again, back to the February general meeting in 2 weeks. Any topics? I think that would be a great March topic. Let's invite, maybe invite Tom to the meeting. But any Feb?
No February meeting?
No, that's what I'm asking. Does anybody have any topics for a February general meeting? Otherwise, I suggest we cancel it.
With how this has moved so quickly some days, hold off till like the weekend to make sure that the world doesn't change by then. Thank you.
Hold off to this weekend?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If anything happens before this weekend, let me know. Otherwise, let's cancel. That work?
Sounds great.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. All right. Last but not least, Chris.
I have nothing to report.
Nothing?
No, I have nothing to report.
Are you still here?
I'm still here.
Okay.
I still own property in the neighborhood. I'm still here.
All righty. Then I guess we are done.
Brad, I put in chat the email address of the person to contact about parking permits.
Thank you very much.
So,
All right. Anything else before we adjourn?
No.
Thanks, everybody.
So
Thank you.
until further notice, then the general meeting is canceled. Is that correct?
No.
The February.
And send me any items
February.
by Friday. If I don't get any items, the February meeting is canceled.
Then we could put that in the weekend blast.
And you'll send out an email saying
I
it's
will.
canceled?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks.
Good night.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.